Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video. My mother-in-law, 59 female, lives with me and my husband Jonas. Her life has been extremely hard. It has been just her and Jonas since he was 10 years old. To cope with all her trauma, she began using drugs. She was in rehab for a few years. Jonas was raised by his grandparents and aunt. Jonas didn't see his mother for many years, so even though she was out of rehab, there was no healthy relationship between my mother-in-law and husband. I'm a very sensitive person. When I heard his mother's life story, I felt heartbroken. I understood that it was difficult for Jonas to rebuild a relationship with his mother. So, on my part, I tried as much as I could to maintain a warm relationship with her. Ever since we started dating, I have tried to involve my mother-in-law in our plans. I try to take her out for shopping and dinner at times. She is a sweet woman and always appreciated my efforts. When we decided to get married, I made it clear to Jonas that I want him to involve his mother as much as possible in the wedding preparation and marriage. By the time we were married, I could see that the relationship between Jonas and his mother was simply improving. This made me incredibly happy. At the time of our marriage, his mother was living with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was not part of our family, and I always felt that their relationship was a standalone thing. 3 years after our marriage, one night my mother-in-law called me and she was crying out loud. I couldn't understand half of what she said. I asked her to calm down and then talk. She told me that she found out that her boyfriend was cheating on her. When she confronted him with proof, he asked her to leave the house. She was standing completely stranded outside his house. Jonas was hesitant to go pick her up, but I pushed him. Then we drove there to pick her up. On the way there, Jonas told me that he doesn't want her at our place for long. I felt like he was being heartless. He was talking to me as if it was my mother, but I didn't want to argue with him then. We picked up his mother and took her back to our home. She was very tired. After she slept, I told Jonas that she could live with us as long as she wants. I was sure about my decision. I think he did not want to argue, so he went to bed without saying anything about it. 1 week into my mother-in-law living with us, I understood that there was a cold war happening between my husband and her. Jonas rarely acknowledged her presence. She, on the other hand, tried every way possible to talk to her son. It was heartbreaking for me to see. I tried to cheer her up because I knew that she was going through a heartbreak. I even took a day off to take her out. When I realized that she was going to live with us for a long time, I helped her shift all her luggage from her ex-boyfriend's place to our house. I could see that Jonas was not liking it, but I decided to follow my instincts. One afternoon, while I was at work, I got a call from my mother-in-law screaming that she feels like there was someone else in the house. I rushed there immediately to see a police vehicle parked near our house. 2 police officers were taking information from my mother-in-law. They left by the time I reached there. She was still shocked, but she looked a bit different. Her eyes were red and glassy. Her speech was a bit slurred. Was she taking drugs again? But this could be the result of the shock that she felt as well. She recovered after a while. The police officers confirmed that they couldn't find anything in the CCTV footage from the street. I informed Jonas about this when he reached home from work. He decided to install 2 cameras facing our front and back doors just to be safe. But he kept telling me that his mother might have hallucinated it. A few days later, while at work, I got a call from Jonas. He asked me whether I was at work. I said yes. He asked me if I had been to our house today. I was at the office the whole day, so I said no. He didn't explain further and cut the call. When I reached home, I asked Jonas multiple times why he called me at work. He claimed that it was a random call. He called when he missed me. Around the same time, I observed that my mother-in-law's sleep pattern was changing. She rarely got up before noon. She slept late at night. Often I could listen to her blasting loud music at midnight and dancing to it. I mean, her body looked younger and stronger compared to her age. I knew that I had no right to complain, as I was the one who decided for her to live with us. Another few days passed uneventfully, and then I got a call from my mother-in-law while I was at work. I panicked as soon as I saw her contact card on my phone screen. I attended the call. She was screaming, but in a very muffled tone and breathing with difficulty. It sounded like she was hiding inside the wardrobe and speaking as if not to attract any attention to her. She was feeble but intense. She told me that she found my sister with my husband in the kitchen in a compromising position. She couldn't believe it and almost had a mini heart attack. To keep her from telling this to me, I left the office immediately without even calling my husband. I rushed to our house and saw that the front door was open. I silently went inside. In the kitchen, I saw that Jonas was cooking something. He had his earphones on. I saw no signs of anyone else. He heard my footsteps when I was near him. He started to laugh when he saw me and asked, "Damn, did she call you as well?" I did not understand what was happening. I asked him where mother-in-law was. He walked me to the living room where she was lying, passed out. I told Jonas what his mother told me over the phone. Then I asked him why he was at home on a working day. He had a different story to tell. His mother called to inform him that a stranger was in the house. He saw in the CCTV footage that a hooded guy was entering the house. But to his surprise, his mother opened the door to this guy. He immediately rushed home from work. By the time he reached there, the guy was outside our house. He stopped and asked him. He told Jonas that he supplied drugs to his mom. Jonas left the guy and went home to see his mom passed out on the couch. By then, she might have called me as well. Jonas told me one more thing. For the past few weeks, his mother has been calling him on consecutive days to tell him that I was cheating on him at our house. The only day when Jonas called me to ask was when she specifically added the name of an ex-boyfriend that only we both knew. I told him that while talking about her breakup, I had mentioned to her my past relationships. She used details I had shared with her to confuse my husband. My immediate reaction was to apologize to Jonas. He had asked me not to let her stay with us. This has added so much confusion between us. I went to her room and saw that she was indeed using drugs. I felt betrayed. I have only shown this woman love and compassion, and here she was trying to split my marriage. I silently packed all her luggage and kept it outside our home and waited for her to wake up. When she woke up, I patiently took her outside and explained why I didn't want her there. I didn't give her a second to explain anything. I immediately went inside and shut the door. I could hear her shouting and cursing me. After 30 minutes, I saw a car near our home. She entered the car and went somewhere. I'm still processing the evilness of my mother-in-law. Jonas has since then consoled me, saying whatever happened because of my unlimited love for people around me. But my sister, parents, and his aunt are of a different opinion. They say that I shouldn't have immediately asked her to leave the house because she was still under drugs. They blame me for not consulting with them or thinking about the possibility of rehab. But I was hurt and couldn't think of anything else to do. Am I the AH for asking my mother-in-law to leave our house after I learned about her drug usage and plans to destroy my marriage? His mother has not reached any of their relatives' places. We just got a call from her ex-boyfriend. She has been there since today afternoon and has no plans to leave. He just told me that he used to sell drugs and that's how he knew her. He has a family of his own. I now have a completely different picture of my mother-in-law. Jonas has been very calm and composed throughout this chaos. I was wondering why he was hesitant to take his mother in. He had earlier told me that his father died in an accident, but in reality, his father killed himself after he came to know that his wife was cheating on him. Jonas knew about this during the time of his father's death. At the peak of her drug use, his mother once tried to choke him to death. That's what led her to rehab. He has since then stopped seeing her as his mom. He should have told this to me earlier, but I'm glad that I came to learn about all this at least now. I feel less guilty about what I did to his mother. More shocking news. My mother-in-law was arrested early morning today by the police. Her ex-boyfriend had another girlfriend and a daughter. My mother-in-law had been forcing him to break up with his girlfriend. Today, she went a step further and tried to stab her ex-boyfriend with a knife. Jonas is not at all shocked. But just thinking about the chances of us being at the other end of her knife will give me sleepless nights. YTA. You just left a woman in her late 50s struggling with drug use, completely stranded outside your house? Regularly using drugs can rewire your brain mechanisms. What she wanted was medical help. This is the time when your sympathetic side should have acted up. Instead, you just escaped by leaving her outside. YTA, your husband was clearly uncomfortable about taking her in. You should have at least considered his opinion before taking a major decision. You just paid a price for your stupidity. NTA, you saw a woman struggling and wanted to help her out. She, being evil, is not your fault. It is rare to find kind souls like you these days. I have a massive mortgage on a house in an HCOL city. I have 4 roommates. I have the basement suite and the upstairs is rented to 1 couple and 2 single people. They know I own the house and all of them were recommended to me by friends or family. I still require the lease agreement and security deposit as well as first and last month's rent. I just was willing to rent to them at below market rate because I didn't have to advertise or arrange for a property manager. Between the 4 of them, I collect enough to cover the mortgage and utilities with a little left over. I save my money and use it to pay for major repairs and maintenance. I will be starting a new job in a different city in the new year. I knew about this back in late October. I offered the couple an opportunity to take over the basement suite in the new year for a little bit more money. They would get a massive bedroom upgrade and a private living room, bathroom, and kitchen. They agreed and let me know that they were planning on moving out in 1 year, so they would be willing to sign a 1-year lease. I asked the 2 singles if either of them wanted to take the master bedroom that would be empty. They both declined, but asked if they could turn it into a home office for them. I said sure, but they would have to cover the rent for the room. They think I'm being unreasonable. Since I will be making more money off the couple, they think I should keep their rent the same and let them have the room for free. I offered it to them for 80% of what I was getting before. They call me a selfish a-hole for taking all their money. Even if they took the deal, they would still be paying less than market value for a single room in our city. It turned into a huge fight with the people who refer them to me, calling me a greedy a-hole for trying to suck money out of their friends. I don't need to deal with any of this. I found a property investor who was willing to buy my house and honor my current leases, including the new one for the couple. Unfortunately for the other 2 renters, their leases are up in February, and I imagine that the rents will be going up a fair bit. But that isn't my problem anymore. So now everyone they know are angry with me because these 2 people will most likely have to move into a crappier living situation. I feel bad because if I wasn't moving, I would stay and deal with it. But it is just easier to walk away. NTA, if you weren't going to be there to take care of the house, you would have to pay someone to do it. This seems like the right decision for you. They blew their sweet deal by being greedy themselves. NTA, everyone wants something for free, and that they want you to allow them to use space that they refuse to pay for is ridiculous. It's their own fault that they got other people involved and made this untenable for you. Don't carry any feelings about it. Walk away with your profit and enjoy your new life. NTA, you aren't required to give away rental space for free, and it is your business what you decide to do with your property. It isn't like you are a slumlord who just unilaterally and arbitrarily hike their rents. You offer them more space for more money, and still below market. If they didn't want to pay more, they easily could have just said no. Instead, they chose to get entitled and call you names. Who does that to their landlord and expect there to be zero consequences? They made it clear that managing this property from a distance would be a headache, so you made the reasonable decision to sell it. Context. Flight between two major European cities. Flight costs about €60. Flight time, 1.5 hours. Me, 32, male, am 5'10", and I check into my flight the night before. I wanted a window seat, so I chose a window seat. It was not extra, but I had seen that the cost for extended legroom was about €20. This was a larger plane, so each side of the aisle had 3 seats. So window, middle, and aisle. I didn't feel the need to get more space because I intended to sleep and it's generally sufficient space. After takeoff, the person in front reclines their seat. No problem. I recline my seat, but the guy in the aisle behind, but in the middle, stops me. Tells me that he is too big and the chair reclines into his legs. This man seated in the middle is extraordinarily tall and seated in the middle, so his knees extend into the space of both the aisle and window seats. People on both sides of him now have their space invaded by his limbs, and the entire row in front of him can't recline their seats, despite the aisle in front reclining and invading their space. A total of 5 people around him have minor inconveniences because of his height. I say, yeah, no problem. I won't recline my seat, but next time you can choose a different seat so as to not inconvenience 5 other people. He explains that normally the attendants give him an aisle seat or upgrade him, but they couldn't this time. I respond that it isn't the airline's responsibility to give him a seat, and if he knows he doesn't fit in the middle seat, he could have chosen an aisle, as there was no charge to choose an aisle seat. I had seen the option the night before. Or he could have upgraded for extended legroom seating for an extra €20. He says he didn't have the €20 to spend. Mind you, he is flying to one of the most expensive cities in the world. I said choosing an aisle option is free, to which he says he didn't have that choice and that I am being selfish. I respond by saying, I'm not being selfish. I'm fine with having less space so you can be more comfortable, but pointing out that you're the selfish one for not taking responsibility for others' space and depending on flight attendants to put you in better seats. He thanks me for my opinion sarcastically, and I sarcastically reply that I'm just looking out for his best interests. We exchange fake smiles. Honestly, what bothered me was the rent-seeking behavior and the principle of it. Am I the a-hole? YTA, you're acting like this dude chose to be 6'8" and therefore chose to make everyone around him uncomfortable, mainly himself. Then you assume he had the same options to choose a seat you did, and then went about lecturing him on his flying choices. Don't you think he would have chosen an aisle seat if he could? He could have had a different type of ticket that didn't offer him a seat choice, or maybe had to make a last-minute purchase due to a number of reasons, therefore limiting his seat choices. But you decided to paint his story with your brush and be an a-hole about it. It was a 1.5-hour flight. Sorry you couldn't recline, and it was nice of you to not, but you could have withheld the lecture. I'm inclined to say YTA, if only because you're making a lot of assumptions. You're supposed to keep the aisles clear for safety reasons, so even if he took an aisle seat, he shouldn't be stretching his legs out in them, and he might not be able to afford the extra cost to upgrade his seat. What really does suck is that airlines have shrunk legroom so much that even average-sized people are crunched for legroom, and tall people have absolutely no hope of fitting comfortably into the seats unless they spend ridiculous amounts of money to do so. And maybe I should change my answer to the airline is TA here. YTA. The airline's neglect is providing sufficient space for customers to be comfortable is not the fault of any customer. To body shame anyone for any reason is an a-hole move, and that's what you did to that man. Making presumptions about other people's money and spending it for them is also an AH move. Making such a big deal out of experiencing minor inconveniences when it was such a short flight was an AH move. What you should have done was make the flight attendants aware of the problem and have them sort it out if they could. What you chose to do was make a big scene and embarrass another person who didn't need you to tell him that he is very tall and impinging on other people's space. He already knows that, but there's nothing he can do about it in such a poorly designed space over which